And we are live with episode 3, let's just say, of the Acolyte tonight. It's that show brought to you by the Keeg, where we talk about the most recent episode of the Acolyte, the one that just popped up 2 hours ago. I'm your host, Dimithri Perera. And on this, obviously, co-host, Sara Zitney, aka Miss Marauder. Sara, how's it going?
Hello, going good.
Better oh no, I'm not gonna ask about the show just yet. I have some like interesting thoughts, but let's introduce our guest for today. We got Joshua Johnson, aka Mesa Windu. Mace, what's up?
What's up, man? Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Keeg. Always a pleasure, always a blast.
So then I'm gonna say, because I feel like we've worked together a little bit, that the Keeg is the brand.
Okay, gotcha.
And I forget where I was. I was talking to somebody. I was like, Keeg is like Coca-Cola, man. I don't know if I said it that way, like a Matthew McConaughey kind of thing, but like, Keeg's just Coca-Cola, man. You wouldn't call me Coca-Cola now. Anyway,
okay,
so
understood.
Dimithri.
Dimithri. All right, good to be back, Dimithri.
When people say the Keeg, they're like, "Your name's Keegan, right?" And I'm like, "No, my name's not Keegan." Though
you have to change it.
Yeah,
it happens to me when I see people at cons. They're always like, "Ms. Marauder," and I'm like, "Yep, that's me from the internet." So it's one of those things that I made it because I was really into Harry Potter, but I'm not really into Harry Potter anymore. But I can't change it because there's people that don't know what my name is.
Yeah.
And I want to be sensitive to those people.
Mace, did you come up with your username because of Mace Windu?
That was part of it, but it's actually kind of a running gag.
Uh-huh.
I always love telling the story. I can actually kind of attribute it to a buddy of mine who does not have social media or anything like that. He always had this weird way of saying Mace Windu. Like he would say, like, because he's from Wisconsin, so like he has like a weird dialect when he talks about. So we were talking about Star Wars. I forgot the topic, but he mentioned Mesa Windu, and he was like Mesa Windu, and I was like, "What did you say?" And he was like Mesa Windu, and I was like, "You mean Mace Windu?" He was like, "Yeah, I said Mesa Windu." I was like, "No, you're putting like an in the middle there." And he was like, "No, I'm not." I was like, No, you are. You are." So we kind of let it go. And then when I was thinking of names, when I first started TikTok, I think in 2020 during the pandemic, I was kind of like, "Oh, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do like a cheeky little like reference to him." And at the time he rolled his eyes, but now he's like, "You owe me like half of your proceedings now." And I was like, it's not how that works, buddy. But yeah, it's a funny story.
It's like the Daredevil. When Daredevil was a kid, all the bullies used to beat up the blind kid and call him Daredevil, and that's how he came up with his name. So very similar origin stories.
We're basically both superheroes. That's kind of where, that's we're kindred spirits in that way.
I'm glad to have you because we change the guest every episode, and last time we had Chaco to talk about episodes 1 and 2 because they came out together. How did you like episodes 1 and 2? Not even get into episode 3, but like episode 1 and 2. Like how'd you like those?
So I'll start off by saying that I have I'm pretty. This
You're
sounds.
Pretty?
I am. Yes, I'm very handsome. My mother always says so, and that's the only opinion that matters. Your mother. No. I enjoyed 1 and 2. I also have to admit that I don't have a critic's eye, for the lack of a better term. I like Star Wars, so like it's really easy as long as you can kind of like capture what makes Star Wars special and wondrous to me. It's really easy for me to at least give you like a 6 or 7 out of 10. It's like, I had fun today. There's more stuff to learn about. I'm cool with this. But all being said, with that asterisk out of the way, I did enjoy it. I like the different feel. It's familiar, but not too familiar because it's 100 years before anything that we're familiar with in the prequel trilogy or anything like that. I like the setup. It feels like a murder mystery kind of show, which is not something that I'm used to seeing from Star Wars. It's kind of like how with Andor, it was like a genuine like commentary on the socioeconomic and major political ramifications of our world. I was like, holy shit, I wasn't expecting this. Like, good God, like it cooked. But I enjoyed it a lot. A lot of the new characters are really likable. I really like Master Soul. All of them are pretty likable. I didn't find any of the characters irritating. And it feels like that's kind of tradition to have at least one that you kind of go, oh my God, this fucking guy. But yeah, Jar Jar takes the cake with a lot of people, but
Yeah.
I didn't find any in this particular one. Now, if you wanted me to nickel and dime, like I'm sure there's a few criticisms that I could have, but that's kind of like the struggle I have with reviewing things that aren't like complete, like if it's a week by week basis, I can judge it on its merits as an episode, like a single episode. But I also have to keep in mind, like, if I'm complaining that I don't understand why they're doing this, it's like, well, it could be because there's 7 episodes left, and so I always have to keep that in mind. But overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I liked the setup.
Yeah. I mean, something that we were talking about last time is like, I've been saying it's very noir. Like the idea of an evil twin, the idea of there's a murder to be solved, there's like shady characters, there's a conspiracy. To me, it's more than a murder mystery. It's almost like, yeah, like a noir. I don't want to say political thriller. It depends on how deep it goes.
Yeah, it depends on, yeah, it depends on like because like right now, like the Jedi's ineptitude is kind of just the backdrop. It's kind of like, it's not really like the focus. They're letting you know, like, hey, the Jedi are kind of like on their way into how they are in the prequel trilogy. Like as the decades pass, they're going to be more and more like how you see them in episode 1, 2, and 3, and what eventually leads to their demise. But that's just something that's just something that's so far is just a backdrop. The main story appears to be about Osha and her twin. And that's what the focus of the show seems to be.
Yeah. Sarah, did you come up with any before episode 3? Did you come up with any realizations since we did our episode? In the last 6 days?
I found that people really like Yord. And it's called the Yord Horde.
People like Yord?
People that love Yord. And from what I'm gathering, it's like the baby girl thing. He's just like their sweet baby girl, and they call themselves the Yord Horde. Is what I've learned. I also want to issue a formal apology for saying was there a flame in space? I meant it as a little funny observation, but there's a lot of
people went wild.
People are real mad about it. And I was like, no, I just meant like, that's weird. Is that happening? But I like that this episode, because we ended last episode and we were like, okay, well, the mystery is going to be over the next episode because they're going to find the last Jedi she wants to find, and then we're going to take it a new direction. And I went back and watched the episode, and I think I was so excited to see Manny Jacinto on my screen that I definitely overlooked the subtleties of his character. I thought he was doing it. I was like, oh, he's gonna goofy Jason Mendoza, but I was like, oh no, there's something definitely sinister. I think I was just so excited to see his cheekbones that I wasn't thinking critically enough.
Yeah.
It's a very valid reason to not think critically, though. Manny Jacinto is a very handsome person.
Mace, what have you been dealing with in the past week? Like just being online, being a creator and whatnot. Like people talking about Acolyte and that sort of thing. Like, have you noticed anything?
Anytime there's a new Star Wars project in any way, shape, or form, there's always that level of discourse, good and bad. It just Star Wars has a very, very passionate, for the lack of a better term, fan base and circle of interest. And this show seems to unfortunately have grab the attention of certain kinds of, if you want to call it content creators, where it's like, oh, like it's the same shit. It's like the woke and the like the same. This is woke, and we get this every new show, but with Acolyte it seems like it's a lot more passionate. I mean, now I'm seeing like really, really big creators posting about it that they normally wouldn't post about, and I'm like, yeah, okay. Like there was a thing that got reposted. Amanda Stenberg was on, what was it, Jimmy Fallon, or was it another one? I forgot which talk show she was on. It was about a completely different project she was on, and it was 5 years ago. And they were like, "This is her talking about the Acolyte," and people were like, "No, it's not actually. It had nothing to do with the Acolyte."
Yeah, the clip is her saying that the point was to make white people cry, and that's from the film The Hate You Give, which is based on the book, which is something that some of my students read this semester. And it's like an incredible book. It's a really good movie. And the fact that they're pulling that to be like, see, she wants white people to cry. And I was like, that book is explicitly about like police violence against the Black community. Like that's like not in any way. So the fact they're pulling that is wild to me. And I also, there were some comments that I read of people being like, well, I didn't watch it, but I've heard from people that it's like, homosexuality, there's like the gay stuff is like a main part of the story. And I was like, even that part, even the mother's line, I heard it and was like, oh, she's got two moms. But then people were like, well, she's also in a coven of witches where the leaders are referred to as mothers. And I was like, okay, so it might not be gay at all.
And then we find out in this,
this episode, it was like, I'm still not, part of the thing for me is like, I know I'm taking over this question. Part of it for me is like, if you know it's going to happen anyway, that just by existing,
rip the Band-Aid off.
It's gonna, like, why didn't they kiss? Like, there was a gentle face touch, and it's like,
because that's like, what friends do.
Just let I sometimes caress my friends' faces,
like this, like, hey,
yeah,
it's gonna be okay.
If we're going through a hard time, I'll give I'm a very affectionate person.
Little earlobe.
Yeah, do a little earlobe nibble. Yeah. It's like, if you guys are gonna, if the line "your mothers," like that was the only situation in the first two episodes where anything could have even been mildly thought of as being talking about any kind of sexual orientation. If that's gonna get people to say the gay stuff has a big part of the plot, then just have them kiss.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, come on now.
Yeah. Like in for a penny, like you might as well just go for it.
It's, I'm sure there was some discourse when Empire came out when they said, well, and it's tough because in hindsight, we all love Lando, we all love Billy D. But like, I'm sure back then they were like, why couldn't they have cast a white actor as Lando? I'm sure somebody would have said that, right? And at that point, it would have been an all white cast, right? So like, why? I'm sure there was someone there that was a step too far. Shouldn't the best actor for the role get the part of Lando Calrissian? You know what I mean? Like, it's always a step too far. Like, there's always, no matter what you do, there's always opposition.
It's one of the main reasons why I just like recently I've just anytime somebody asks me about this stuff, I just like, honest to God, and it's genuine. It's not me trying to be mean. Sometimes when people ask me like, what do you think about what so-and-so said about how this is like the collapse of Western civilization? I'm like, I don't fucking care. Dude. Like after a while you get so much of it that it's just like, it goes one ear and out the other. Like these guys make so much money talking about how much they fucking hate a thing. And like after a while you just want to be like, yo, dude, like, I know why you're doing it. Like you're making a fuck ton of money. Like you're getting 400,000 views a video to say that two women kissing is like the end of the world. Like I don't fucking care. Like I will always, I mean, I'm a Star Wars fan. Like I like what I like. Like I'm going to go in and I'm going to watch a Star Wars movie or a new show that comes out. And if I have genuine problems with it, I'll talk about it. Like if I have a problem with the pacing, if I have a problem with like lore decisions that are made, if I have a problem with how a story flows, I'll talk about this stuff. I've never been afraid to express my opinions in that regard. But when it's clearly just like, oh yeah, dude, like they're shoving, it's the classic shoving this down our throat, and I'm just like, no, it's not, first of all. And I had one guy today, he was like, why am I continuing to get this stuff on my feed? And I was like, just fucking block me. Like what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to say? I don't understand. Like I just, sometimes I sit there and I look at my feed and I'm just like, why are you mad? Like you wake up and you just like, you figure out like, I'm gonna get pissed at this. Two women kissing in an episode of The Acolyte. I'm going to make a 20-minute like video essay about how this is a deliberate attempt by the gay community. Like like they're gonna just go out of their
Right.
way to just fucking be dickheads. I hate it. I'm sorry. I don't even know if that answered the question.
I don't know. I mean,
I dealt with like 20 of them today, and I was just
yeah.
like, oh my god,
No,
man.
I mean
It's-
that's what, you know, every time a new Star Wars thing comes out, there's always the opposition to anything.
Yeah.
Even I don't know. It's just it's a lot. Moving into this episode,
hmm
I'll be honest. I think I gave like the first two episodes like jointly like a 7 out of. Did I give it a 7 out of 10, Sarah? I forget, but
Yeah.
I think I gave it a 7 out of 10 because I was like, okay, it's good enough and it's setting up something.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily like this episode, so
Okay.
I didn't like episode 3. I'm not saying it's bad per se. I'm not hating on it. I just thought it was a little boring and formulaic, and I don't know whether I either needed the flashback in episode 2 or I need the flashback in maybe episode 4 or 5. Like,
I do kind of get that point of view of this feels like a kind of episode that you would get like a penultimate kind of way, like when more stuff and then you like it's kind of one of those things where they keep alluding to that thing that happened 16 years ago, and you're like, what the fuck were you guys doing 16 years ago that made a dude, one of the Jedi, kill himself, the other one dies because of something related to that.
Yeah.
She's going after a third Jedi who was there, and Sol is being uncharacteristically quiet about his role there. Like what kind of cover up, what kind of like Iran Contra Reagan shit is going on that like and it's I was surprised when we got this now. I was like, oh wow, we're getting like the flashback now. But the more when I watched the episode, I was like, okay, like one of the major takeaways I got from it was this isn't the full story.
No.
Like at all. Like at all. People were like, oh, like I don't understand why XYZ, and I'm sure we'll get to certain plot points in this episode. But people were like, I don't understand why this happened, why that happened, why that happened. And I was like, I think we got like 70% of what happened, and the other 30%, maybe I'm being generous, more like 60% of what happened. And then Osha wakes up and everything's over. And it's like, okay, like it's like getting like a really important document and most of it's blacked out. And you're like, okay, like what am I supposed to do with it? Like there's so much here that like I feel like we're missing out on. And so like that's one of the things that I kind of held off on. But I do agree that it kind of was a change of pace in regard to the first two. I thought we were going to continue where episode 2 left off.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to go meet Kelnaka, like present day Kelnaka, and see what he was up to and all that stuff, and slowly move towards what's been going on the past 16 years. But when they cold opened with the twins, I was like, oh, okay. We're doing this. So yeah.
I liked that they did the flashback here because I feel like we spent a lot of episodes 1 and 2 with Osha, and I really got to know May in this episode up until the end, where I was like, what just happened? Like the last maybe I was, I take my copious notes. I rewound it and watched the last 5 minutes again because I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I must have missed the progression of what just happened.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. So it's like, it's a little frustrating to be like, we're going to spend 45 minutes giving you the background, but we're actually not going to tell you what happened.
Yeah.
It's like,
there's going to be another flashback episode. That's the problem.
Yeah. And it's like the flashback of, like, oh, here's what really happened in that flashback. And it's like, I want to know now. Because at a point, I was like, I understand why May hates the Jedi. Like, if they came, there was a moment where she said, she was talking to Osha, and Osha's like, don't you want to know what's out there in the galaxy? And May just goes, no, I have everything I need here. And it's like, she doesn't want to leave home. Osha wants to leave so bad. She doesn't want to leave home. She very deeply cares about the people around her, even though she's kind of a psychopath, right? But she deeply cares about everyone here. And then the Jedi come in and kill everyone, accidentally or not. And that, for me, I was like, I understand why May is killing people. But then it was like, no, she attempted to murder her sister and then burnt down everything really fast. A structure that I thought was made mostly of stone. So I don't know what's catching on fire here, but again, I think that's going to be another.
I think there's
probably a
multiple
nitpick.
fires. That's my theory.
Right. Like it, and then everyone dies really quick off screen. And then, yeah, it was I was going with it until the end. And then I was kind of annoyed at the end. The only thing that made me not mad at the end is Saul, is like the acting that from him with young Osha.
Yeah,
like,
that was great. That was
put
really
a
good.
silver lining on all of my notes in my last page where they're just like, huh? What's happening? Someone explain.
There's a lot of really, really, really strangely vague shit going on in the flashback. Like I was put off by a lot because there was a lot of like facial nuances, movements, facial acting there in a lot of different scenes, particularly with Mother Anicia. I think there's something. I don't want to say that like the witches were like, I don't know whose fault overall like the entire thing was. I think that's kind of the big tragedy. I don't think either of them were particularly hell-bent on making sure that none of them survived. Like, I don't think there was any sort of like, but I do think a series of events must have happened where it was like, oh shit, like the Jedi. Anyway, I think with Mother Anicia and her followers, there's some sort of, when Osha tells Mother Anicia, like, I want to be a Jedi, I looked at her reaction and she was weirdly resigned. And at first I was like, oh, it's because she's like, oh, you have to go your own way, sweetie. Like, but the more I thought about it, I was like, I wonder if she had any intention of letting her
go,
letting her do that.
See,
like
I looked at it and went, oh, she's a good mom.
That's what I did initially.
Yeah,
but then
like,
the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, like did she actually mean it like that? Did there are so many questions. Like, did May force their hand on this? Or was Mother Anicia actually going to let Osha go be a Jedi, or did May do something crazy? She did get like that little ritual thing on it. Did she unlock some chakra or something where she like possessed people's bodies? And like I don't know. Like, there are so many questions. This is why I can't really like say like, here's what I think happened. Like I think it's just like a bunch of different shit happening at once. Something happened that made Torben want to kill himself. Soul is weirdly guarded about the entire thing.
Yeah.
And Dara is the one I can't get a read on. Like, I don't know what, she's dead now too, so it feels like it's like, damn, man, I really would love to see how she
What's
would
the
react
purpose
to that.
of having Carrie-Anne Moss in this at all? Because she hasn't done much.
And if you go back to episode 1 when she's fighting May or defending herself from May or something like that, and she's like, oh, Jedi don't attack unarmed people, and May was like, yes, you do. And I was like, okay, like, what does that mean? Like did May see something that made her think that she deliberately killed whoever? Like, I don't know. Like, it's just like, it's like when you're looking at a crime scene and you're walking in as an investigator and you're like, somebody's on the wall, somebody's halfway over there, there's a dog in here for some reason. You're like, what the fuck happened? Like,
it's like, was this?
It was like, it's like some Law and Order shit. You're
we
like,
can chart the bullets, but somebody came in here with a grenade.
Why
would they have a grenade?
You're like, I'm gonna take some fingerprints on these bullets, and there's like a bazooka next to the bed. You're like, what? Okay, yeah, like, yeah. And there's also no bodies. It's all just blood. You're like, okay, like, all right, cool, I guess. Like, fine.
Also, there's Dorito dust everywhere.
Yeah, like, there's just like a bunch of different variables here. So I'm honestly scared to just even guess what happened, because I'm like, I'm gonna get this so fucking wrong. I have no idea.
I just think it's rich. It is rich. Yeah. For May to be like, the Jedi kill unarmed people. She just try to light her sister on fire.
I think one thing to consider, she is a child, and like, there's like a lot of kids don't think rationally, especially when they're, very powerful in the Force. Like, it's like, and there's like this whole like, oh, you betrayed me, and she's kind of, I don't want to, I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to say like, oh, she's showing signs of, like, because I frankly don't know, but like, I do know that like with kids, it's like there might be another, it might be easier for them to kind of like jump to a conclusion and say like, oh, Osha lied, so she didn't protect the family, and so therefore she must die. You're like, okay, like, all right, okay, so yeah, like, you go from joking around with your sister to, I hate you. I'm gonna burn you alive. You're like, okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I was gonna say on the topic of things that are rich, the Jedi. So the witches aren't allowed to train children, but the Jedi are allowed to take children from their homes and train them. Like, it kind of seems like the Jedi in this situation are just policing who gets to use the Force. Like, why are you not allowing the kids to train to be witches if they're part of the coven? I also thought it was funny when he said the Jedi don't take children.
Yeah,
Like,
I wrote that
like
too.
It's like their main thing.
Maybe he's pulling like a certain point of view thing where he's like, we don't consider it taking children. We're just inviting them to our.
I literally wrote, quote, the Jedi do not take children. LOL. Okay, soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet boy. That's not.
It might unironically be like a certain point of like, we don't see it that way as taking children. We see it as providing them with a new life and a blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, this 7-year-old asked to go with me.
Yeah. Because they have agency. Yeah. It's like
it reminds me, is it the Clinton trial where he was like, define is?
Yeah. It depends on what your definition of the word is.
Like, what? Okay.
Yeah, that's lawyer speak right there.
There's a lot that happens. Well, no. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think there was enough that happened in this episode. Is that? Do you guys feel like enough happened in this episode?
I feel like both too much happened and not enough happened. Like there were so many things. Like if it had ended, like if this episode had gone more in depth in terms of like the let's talk about my like critiques or something like that. Like fuck it, let's do it that way. If it had ended, if what it mainly was about was the two's relationship and like their life as witches in training or whatever enclave they were a part of, and that was like the focus of the episode, and it ended with like maybe it ended with the Jedi arriving so that you don't see the aftermath of that would be enough for me to be like, okay, they're building up towards something crazy that's about to fucking happen. Like that we see their life, we see that Osha's not necessarily happy here, we see that May is all in on it. So we already see that from a narrative standpoint, in terms of weekly releases, we see that where these two lie in terms of what they want to do. Like, oh, okay, I can kind of see where the divide is there. That's when they go their separate ways. I think we know why that's gonna happen. And if it had ended when they said, okay, like we want to train blah 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 and you have until tomorrow to make your decision, and then they kind of like dwelled on the witch culture a little bit more, and then it ended there. It might not have been a very eventful episode, but it would have been something that I think a lot of us could cut our teeth on in terms of, okay, I understand what they're trying to do. Like in 3 episodes we're going to get like a hellhole of an episode when everything goes to shit, and I'm excited to see how that happens.
Right, because if we're gonna have to return to the flashback anyway to get the real story,
right?
Why not spend more time? Yeah, and
exactly.
I had a hard time with this episode, specifically I think because I have a 7-year-old daughter, and she's lovely, love her to death. She's an almost perfect child, but her one problem she has is, and that bothers me the most, is she says things in a really whiny tone. Instead of saying, hey, mom, can I have a snack? She goes, I'm hungry. And Osha, I'm not saying anything about the actress. She's a great young lady, I'm sure. Good actress. Every single fucking line was whiny. She wants to be a Jedi because she was like, she saw the lightsaber and was like, does everyone get a lightsaber? And he was like, yeah, if you train a lot. And she's like, fuck these witches, I'm gonna go be a Jedi because you get a lightsaber. And like it was all like, stop it, May, no, you're doing it. Like, I don't want to be a witch. Don't look at what I'm drawing. And I was like, I hate her. Like as a character, the way she was characterized in this episode, I was like, May might be in a cult, right? But she has some kind of conviction, right? She's powerful in the Force. Yes, she was kind of torturing that bird. But it
was like a butterfly, but right?
Yeah, bird, space bird.
Space butterfly, whatever.
Yeah, alien bird. But the the whining from Osha was like borderline unbearable for me.
I'm gonna add on to that. First things, I think that whoever the director is didn't know how to direct kids. because there are special directors that know how to direct kids. Not Christopher Columbus, but Chris Columbus.
Chris Columbus.
Knows how to direct kids. Like, he made a career out of Home Alone and Harry Potter and all the other. Uncle Buck, I think, is Chris Columbus. Uncle Buck. Anyway, the point being is, like, a lot of directors don't know how to direct kids, and they're just like, and suddenly the kids fight. So fight. So it's like they'll just be like,
yeah, the squabbling scenes were a bit. Yeah. I noticed that too.
He would just like suddenly be like, "Stop touching me."
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I can't say that the actresses were bad per se. They were kid actors, right?
Yeah.
The direction is bad, which made their performances bad. So maybe the actors aren't bad, the performances are bad, and maybe that's what I'll say. You know, I'm not.
I think
bully a
on
kid.
on a set. Well, yeah, no. Talking about acting isn't really bullying a kid, but I think if I remember correctly, I think those two are actual sisters too.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure and that's smart to do. They do that a lot with a lot of stuff nowadays. I think with House of the Dragon, the Cargill twins. I don't know if you guys watched the two Kingsguard that were like brothers, and they're like
Eric
twins.
and Eric.
Yeah, Eric and Arik or whatever. Yeah, they're actual twins in real life. One has a big ass tattoo. He was at the premiere, but this is a sidetrack. But yeah, I remember like it wasn't until I like right before the premiere that I was like, wait, are they actually two? They're brothers. I thought they were doing clever editing. Oh, that's pretty cool. But yeah, no, they do that a lot more with whenever there's like a twin dynamic, they just get like the actual twin. It's like,
the Bailey twins were both on Grownish, Halle Bailey and Chloe Bailey.
Yeah.
And so like they were both on Grownish as twins, and like there was a whole dynamic. Anyway, twins. Okay, so I also think that there's an overarching thing about twins, right? Like thematically in this show, there's twin. I wrote down twin moons, but I don't think they're moons. I think they're big gas giants that are eclipsing, right? In the background. That's what the ascension is.
Is that what it is? I couldn't tell if they were planets or not. I didn't really get a good look at them.
One was red and one was blue. And I feel like there's a symbolism there, obviously, right?
There's probably a metaphor there, yeah.
You know? But I'm also wondering whether if they pull it off thematically, then I'll go back and I'll reevaluate my thing. But maybe they're just doing doubles of everything. Like, the number 2 is going to just pop up a lot in this show. So we have one flashback, and we're going to see the other side of the flashback.
Maybe we'll get it from May's perspective.
Yeah.
Maybe like Osha wasn't around for most of when the shit hit the fan. She was in her room, and by the time she got out, it sounds like the worst of it was over. The rest of it was just the building collapsing, and that's where Saul ends up saving her life. From May's perspective, maybe she saw like everything else that Osha didn't see. Maybe if Osha had seen what May had seen, maybe that would have changed her perspective on things. Maybe it's one of those situations. But then again, maybe that's the problem when there's so much like vagueness that you're like, I have no idea like what's going on. Like, did somebody die? Was it an accident? Does everyone know it was an accident? Did May start the fire? So yeah, but we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like if it had gone, because even the like they can't know how we made the kids, and it's like, just tell me one thing. I just want to know one thing. How did you make the kids?
Well, they made it.
What really happened?
They made it. It was in Coral's womb
with the magic, yeah.
And on is it Anicia?
Anesia, I think her name is.
I know how to spell it, but I forget how they said it. But yeah, she created it, right? Created the twins. So we're dealing with dark magic twins, right?
Yeah.
You know, in the womb of a Zabrakian. So is she a Zabrak?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, she's a Zabrak. It looks like maybe they invented a whole new kind of Zabrak, because I know there's 2 types of Zabrak in canon. There's the Iridonian Zabrak, which is like from Iridonia. They don't have the markings and stuff. And then there's the Dathomirian Zabrak, which is Darth Maul, Savage Opress. Asajj Ventress is technically a Zabrak, even though she's a Zabrak. Like I think, right?
Does she have horns?
She doesn't. I think the females, if I could be butchering this, I don't want to state it like it's law. My understanding is that the female Dathomirian Zabrak don't have horns. Iridonian's female Zabrak do.
Oh,
That's my
okay.
understanding. Like a lot of the women in Dathomir, I think all of the women in Dathomir just have pale skin. They can grow hair. A lot of them shave. It's one
She's
of
a
those things.
Dathomirian Zabrak.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah.
The thing
Which they
about,
don't really dwell on a lot. They just say, "Oh, she's a Dathomirian witch." I'm like, "Oh, is she like a Zabrak?" And they're like, "Oh,"
because it gets
like, "Oh."
confusing. Yeah, Maul's Dathomirian Zabrak as well.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm. I also don't know which one came first in canon because now that they're incorporating how like the Dathomirian witches came from another galaxy, I'm led to believe like, okay, did the Dathomirian Zabrak come first? Because they literally came from another galaxy. I mean, their origin is in another galaxy as told in Ahsoka, right? So are the Iridonians a subspecies of the Dathomirian Zabrak, or is the this is getting
in my
it's fascinating, but you know,
in my limited expanded universe knowledge, because I was telling Chaco, that's kind of where my reading stopped. My expanded, it was expanded universe stuff. But I remember the Witches of Dathomir being in, I believe, the young Jedi Knights books. And then Iridonian was first stated in the first ever Darth Maul book. It was a I have it actually. It was like a kid's chapter book, and it mentions that Darth Maul is Iridonian. That being said, that is no longer canon.
Right, yeah.
And that was before they created Zabraks. And then they created Zabraks, I believe, in Knights of the Old Republic. Might have been the first time you see a Zabrak. I'm not quite sure.
I would have to yield to you on that. I
know.
would have to look that up or something. Yeah, I wouldn't know.
And again, it's expanded universe stuff, so I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
Like what are the first appearances? But anyway, point being is what were we getting on before we went down that?
We were talking about the whole concept of like twins being an important factor of the show. Seems to be an like overarching theme. Duality, one side of the coin kind of situation.
Secrets, maybe.
A lot of two-faced, like, lies, truth, lies, that kind of thing. That seems to be the theme there. A lot of deception and trust issues and all that other stuff.
I want to point out just a funny thing is when we met Torben last time, and I said this on the show, I was like, whoever, because I didn't know what the actor looked like. I was like, the actor looks like he was a high school actor in a high school production of The West Wing, playing Bradley Whitford's character.
Oh wow!
I said it more concise, but it was a high school production of West Wing, and he's playing Bradley Whitford's character. And yeah, he's so young in real life.
It's Tommen. It's Tommen Baratheon.
I don't. Is that
Dean Charles Chapman? Yeah.
That's the roughest 16 years I've ever seen on a person.
Yeah, it took a lot out of him.
But it looked so fake. It was just this weird receding hairline with the beard, and I was like, "But you have no wrinkles. You just have this baby face." He looks like Percy Jackson.
Somebody suggested maybe giving them just like another actor to play the older Torben, and I was like, okay. I mean, like maybe that probably would have worked a little less. I'll get Bradley Whitford to do it. Fuck it. Like just he only had like 2 lines. Older Torben only had like 2 lines.
But it's only how many years?
16 years. Yeah, he probably would have that would have been even more of a drastic aging. Like you go from Dean Charles Chapman to what is Bradley Whitford, like 61? Like
he's 64, yeah.
Oh wow, he's that old? Wow. He looks so good in West Wing, like in terms of like
handsome.
age.
He's like
he's
aged.
Kind of he's aged. Yeah, he's aged pretty well. Like he's held on to his hair. I mean, good for him, because I looked at him in West Wing and I was waiting for it to go and it never did. I was like, oh wow, like it was doing the Widow's. It was doing the Widow's peak, and then when we got to the end of the show, he still had it. He cut it close, but I was like, oh, it's still there. And then when I saw him in Get Out, I was like, fuck, it's still there. Like, good for you. Good for you, man. Yeah.
By the way, just the credit to me to pick a second guest who also knows the exact reference that I'm trying to make.
Oh, yeah.
Chaco last time, he knew it. Sara knows it. You know it.
And
Yeah,
yet,
no,
and yet
I
we're
grew
here,
up on the West Wing.
we're just here punishing you with just Game of Thrones references.
Yeah.
You know how hard when you were talking about twins, other side of the coin. It was so hard for me to not be like, yeah, Targaryens. When a Targaryen is born, you flip a coin, whether they stay sane or go mad. That's what happens. They made 2 kids, so one of them has to be evil.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea the implications of this show um are are massive in different ways. I just like when the show's done and like the story's been told, because I know they said that they're like leaving the door open for future seasons, but I think in terms of the story they're trying to tell, it's going to be a pretty close knit. They're going to resolve pretty much everything, or at least all the major points in this one season. The implications of what they're doing here, I think, are going to be pretty earth shattering in terms of like the wider lore that we understand. Because now we know, and I don't know if you were setting this up for like a separate question, but like now we know that like other people have tried and successfully done like immaculate conception,
Right.
not in the way that Anakin was born. This seems like a different kind of scenario than how Anakin was born.
Right.
But there have been other, force sensitive people that have been conjured, for the lack of a better term. And there seems to be a pretty big worry there for the Jedi Order, because it's like, if you remember how they acted when they said that there was no father, like it was kind of like, wait,
in episode 1,
in episode 3.
Oh, okay.
When they said that there wasn't
3 of this. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, of the when they said that there wasn't a oh, I know what episode 1 when Shmi said it, but in episode 3 of the Acolyte, when she said that there was no father, and they all were like, oh fuck, like I don't think any of them suspected that it was like a chosen one thing, but I do think that they were like, what are you guys doing over here? Like,
is that
what's
what
going
we're
on?
dealing with? I'm gonna pose a question to both of you guys. Like, is it that there was a prophecy that this chosen one would bring balance to the Force, and now everybody's rushing to create the chosen one?
I don't think it's impossible, that point of view. I don't think, because it sounds like this prophecy is like an ancient one, like the Jedi Order, like the whole balance of the Force thing. That sounds like something that's been an ancient urban legend for thing, and they kind of like laughed at Qui-Gon for believing it. So I think at a certain point they were kind of like giving up on that.
Mhm.
And so when Qui-Gon tells them that Anakin's the chosen one, they were like, okay, buddy, like yeah, that's cool. But I do think that there is a sense of, I do think that they take like, what am I trying to say here? I think they look at something like this with what Mother Anesia has apparently done with Osha and May. And I think they look at that and say like the implications of a Force user conjuring up 2 Force sensitive children is, and doing it in a way that like is not affiliated in any way whatsoever to what we understand as the light side of the Force.
Yeah.
Could make anybody who's attuned to the Force go like, okay, I'm not sure if this is the best way to handle it. So I understand why they're a bit apprehensive about coming up to them and being like, hey, what are you guys doing over here? Now we can talk about like the whole, you guys can't do that, only we're allowed to. Like only we're allowed to. Nobody does that but us. But I do think that there is some legitimacy to their concern there, because with the dark side of the Force, that's when they start talking about unnatural developments and stuff. Like Palpatine said it himself, where it's like that's where the crazy shit happens.
Yeah.
Like that's where the unpredictable stuff happens, and the Jedi don't like when there's unpredictable shit going on. And so, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. I wasn't expecting that when they said that. I was like, oh fuck! Like I thought it was like a Dathomir thing where there was a father, but he's dead now, because like part of their culture or whatever is to like, yeah, the male is not a major part of what the witches do. It's kind of like the Dathomir and Zabrak or something like that. They're there to have children with the females, and then it's like a Black Widow female spider, and she eats the head of them, and then they go about their day. It's like, so yeah, it's an interesting development. There's so much that I want to find out about, but it's just
It's tough. I mean, there's not enough. I mean, we can speculate, but Sarah, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, because they were exiled from their other planet and then came here. So there's obviously some stuff they were doing, some dark magic they weren't supposed to be doing. Was that creating kids out of midair? Was that something to do with training kids, and that's why they're kind of on the Jedi's radar? But it's tough for me because again, I want to know about that. But then also the concept of like Osha and May already have these like ideas in their brain about the Jedi, where it's like May says the Jedi are bad, and then Osha's like, no, they're good. And it's like, what do you guys know about the Jedi? I would have liked to see it from like, I would like to have seen them grow up together and kind of watch it as it forks, right? As we see it now, they're like what, 7 or 8 years old, and it's like they're already so set in their ways, but we don't know how they got there. How did Osha, like, what were the first signs of her starting to be curious about stuff outside of the coven, right? What are, you know, how did May get further and further into it?
How'd they get outside the wall?
Yeah, like, what's the, and like, everyone is more concerned about Osha running, like, they kind of know that this is Osha's thing, that she might run away, but like, I definitely needed the development of that, because it seemed like we spent like 2 days with them, maybe?
Yeah.
If that, and I needed a lot more time with them. Follow up to that, the Jedi are good, the Jedi are bad. I didn't get the full quote. The mom says, yeah, she says the Jedi are bad. She says the Jedi are good. And she says something along the lines of, it's not about good or bad, it's about power and who's allowed to yield it or who's allowed to use it.
Yeah.
Did she say that?
Yeah, is that a Star
said
Wars
that.
quote? Because it sounds like a Voldemort quote.
Yeah.
Voldemort says there is no good and evil, only power and those too weak to seek it. And there's no good and bad, only power and who's allowed to use it. Is like, that's like a real, if we're having her mom very closely come to quoting Voldemort.
I don't know.
Because
I
at
didn't
first
pick up that quote.
I wrote it down to be like, oh, what's that from? Right? Because
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's from somewhere. And I was like, oh yeah, it's from Voldemort.
It's also not like it's also like decidedly not a it's not a Jedi philosophy to have at all. It is much more aligned with like Sith teachings in terms of like, because the Sith in Legends, because that's the more expanded like description of it. But one of my favorite books of all time, across the board, nonfiction sci-fi, the Darth Plagueis novel, is really, really good, because Plagueis talks a lot about his interpretation of Sith philosophies, his interpretation of Darth Bane's philosophies, and he talks a lot about how, along the lines of, it's about us being able to tap into things that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to as force wielders. He was like, he said Jedi and Sith operate in different ways. He said Jedi operate like an iceberg or an ice sheet that's that's like covering the ground beneath it. That they're not built to it was something along the lines of like, it's like a fjord. We're like, Jedi are like a fjord where it's like they're the ice. They never care about what's deeper than surface level or whatever. A Sith Lord thinks like a volcano, where it's like, or a Sith Lord thinks about something like that, where it's like you see everything that you want to see, and for better and for worse, that's how the Force is meant to be interpreted. And so I do like that does kind of connect that a little bit, where like Sith Lords and dark side wielders in general, that's how they look at like gaining more power. They don't look at it as like, oh, like well, that's too dangerous. Like, they don't have a concept of what's too dangerous and what isn't. Like, they just want more power. So if it ends with them getting more power, that's what it is. Like, so this is why, like, the witches, which I'm gonna be honest with you, I feel like they're tapping into the dark side here. I don't think there's some sort of the vibe I'm getting from how they talk and their philosophy and all this other stuff leads me to believe that it's at least dark side adjacent. And so there might be some unethical shit that's going on. Not to say that the Jedi aren't hypocrites, but like, I think there's some shit, you brought up how they were banished from wherever they came from. There's something that we're not knowing about them just yet. So
Yeah.
that it kind of like applies to that whole concept of like answering the questions that otherwise maybe shouldn't be answered. It's like the Jeff Goldblum quote, like you were so preoccupied with wondering if you could, you didn't stop to think whether you should.
Right.
You said, oh, we have the ability to conjure up twin daughters who are innately strong with the Force and could represent a vergence in the Force and potentially shift the entire galaxy on its axis. What do you mean that might not be the best idea? It's a, so
I think it's like a nuclear arms race. I think it's funny, like America has nuclear arms. Nobody's coming in to take America's nuclear arms. America doesn't want other people to have nuclear arms unless they're an ally and they can kind of police them. And so there's this whole thing. So I feel like it's about who can use the Force and who is allowed to create a chosen one.
Yeah.
Because
I
think it's going to tie in with that philosophy.
And it kind of also ties into like the whole fact that the Jedi didn't want them to. They were like, oh, like we're taking your kids. Like basically, they were like, what do you mean you're like conjuring up children? Like what's going on over there? It's that's another thing that ties into the whole who's allowed to use and wield and control these powers. The Jedi are policing that. Not to say maybe this isn't an inherently bad thing to police. Again, like you're using magic to create living beings. We can have a discussion about the ethics of that, but God, there's just like, God, man, times like this makes me wish it was a Netflix binge model, so that I could just watch the entire show, and then I could be like, oh, I understand, but I get why they do it.
I mean, I'm against the Netflix binge model, but it has to be written to utilize whatever model you're going for, right?
I'm generally against it too, but whenever there's stuff like this, I'm like, God damn it, I need to wait like 3 weeks to understand.
I loved
and get
Andor. Having to wait for Andor every single week was
I love that show so
but
much.
I loved it.
I love that show so much.
I feel like they often get it mixed up with what is a binge drop and what is a week to week. Like there has to be like solutions, like there have to be answers given and more questions raised. I don't have any answers, and now I have more questions, but it's like frustrating when the questions, for all intents and purposes, should have been answered by this type of an episode. The only like real satisfying thing is is the time I got to spend with May, because I felt like I was really connecting a lot with her character, and I was like, oh, I see, it's because this place meant so much to us. But then it's not that then it's more confusing with like the grief that Osha is feeling, because not that, losing your entire family wouldn't be terrible, but your mom explicitly said, if you make the choice to go, you'll never see me again. And she was packing her bags. So she was never going to see any of her family again anyway. And then her sister allegedly start the fire that killed everyone. So like, I don't know. You could still be sad about your dead family, right? Like years later, even if you were going to leave. But she was so disconnected from everything. She didn't want to be a witch. She didn't want to stay with her family. She wanted to leave and explore the galaxy. But then her grief is so strong that it held her back. Seems a little like that's a little weak. The Osha motivation has gotten weaker, and the May has gotten a lot stronger. Like I feel like I understand May, and I understand less about Osha than when I started.
Yeah.
Like I need to see Amanda. I need to see Amanda again, because I know that I like Osha as a character at 5:59 p.m. today.
Yeah.
I don't like her. I didn't like the way she was characterized as a kid in this episode.
It also ended really quick for me. It also ended really quickly. I remember when it felt like it was getting ready to end like 3 different times. There were so many scenes where I was like, is this the final scene? Oh, there's another scene. Is this the final scene? Oh, no, it's not. And then it actually was the final scene. And I was like, there's like 8 minutes of credits. It's like Jesus Christ. But it was only like a 40 altogether. It was like a 43-minute episode, so it was really like 38. And so like, and so yeah, no, there's a lot of questions I have, and I want to be patient. I don't want to, but I do have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions.
And also, the ending seemed very rushed to me. And it's one of those things where there's a lot that I'm like, I feel like we could have left that out. Like Osha lying badly on her Jedi test. We all knew she was gonna. It was very obvious when she told them to lie that she wasn't gonna lie.
Mhm.
So we had to go through the whole like, I think that cat's a spaceship, and I think this is a mountain, and then you caught me. It was like, okay, I don't need that.
With
she doesn't
a
need
better performance, it could have been more interesting.
Yeah, and it was also like, what's the purpose of this test? You're asking her if she recognizes a Lothcat? Like, huh? Like,
it's a blind test.
I do like the concept of it, like Dimithri said. I do like the concept of it because I don't want to diss the acting of the child, but I do think I like the scene in concept where it's like a girl, she's going in there and conscientiously saying, I'm gonna lie, I'm gonna bullshit this, and I'm gonna try my best to stick with my community. And the Jedi, because they're Force sensitive and there's 4 Jedi masters in the room with her, when she tries to lie, it's so obvious. They're like, oh yeah,
So
she's bullshitting. She's bullshitting. Oh, good job. And then she's like, what do you mean? I do think it's, but I will say, the more I've said it already, but the more I think about it, the more you guys talk about it, and the more you guys talk about how confusing it was at the end, the more I keep thinking like, damn, it really would have been I think it would have been a lot, may not have been quite as eventful, but it would have been a lot more easier of a flow if they had just focused more on what the first 15 minutes was like and make that the entire episode. I think I would have been okay with that if it just established what Osha and May, what their life was like before everything went to shit, and if they spent the entire episode doing that, because there were a lot of cool nuggets there. And then they ended it with that hint of something really bad's about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think we would have spent more time focusing on how cool this culture was, and I see why Osha and May have a strong bond. I also see why they're a lot different, even though they're twins. Like I like that idea. Like the mother seems like she's nice, but there's also some weird shit going on here. Like I don't know what's going on there, and I think spending a week thinking about that stuff would have been going over easier. And this is one of those shows that I think would have probably benefited from maybe 10 episodes.
As opposed to what, 8?
Rather than I'm not a big fan of the 8-episode thing.
I think everything should be 12.
Yeah, I agree.
Except for somehow Game of Thrones. Somehow Game of Thrones always does it in 10, like perfectly.
Yeah, they make it work.
Yeah,
House of the Dragon cut down 2 episodes this season. It's only going to be 8, which, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I was kind of bummed. I don't know what they do. I honest to God don't know what they do. Maybe they feel like they can tell the whole story effectively in 8, but I just finished my read through of Fire and Blood for the 3rd time. I don't know how you're going to do this in 8 episodes. Like, I don't understand how you're going to do it, but that's besides the point.
I completely agree. I think more time with them and getting to see them branch out, like the training sequence where she was talking about the Force and she was talking about it as being a thread, I really enjoyed. But it was like, it was just kind of a vehicle to remind you that Osha doesn't want to do it and May's really good at it, right? And they're like bickering actively in the background of it. And so it was hard. It's like, again and again, there's a lot of like, we say show don't tell, but in this one it was like, we're telling but then actively showing you a different thing. Like, you guys are bonded, you're twins, your thread was together before anything ever happened. Like, no one can separate you two from that thread. And then like the entire time those two are interacting, they're yelling at each other. Even when she's like, our mom's dead, and she's like, what did you do? What did you do? And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like, put the get along shirt on them, put on the extra large, this is our get along shirt. And like, I'm like, from what we saw in that episode, like they seem to like hate each other. or at least like
Yeah, they didn't
don't
seem
have
awfully
us
close.
like they made it said, tell your sister you love her. I love you.
Yeah.
It was rough, but it's like if we would have spent more time with them and seen them grow apart and even spend more time like with an adult and a child having a conversation, like if instead of them bickering in the background, if it was her mom telling her about the thread and all this kind of stuff, because she clearly has a really strong relationship with her mom that she was able to come out and say, I'm fine, like I like that she was able to feel safe enough to be like, I don't want to be a witch, I want to be a Jedi, this is what I want.
Yeah.
I
but
have a
then
thought
we
about what
didn't
they're
get
gonna
there.
do. Yeah. I mean, they're gonna rush them on it, right? They're gonna show us the other viewpoint that happens on the other side and the things that we don't know. That might be the penultimate episode where we get some big reveal. That being said, I don't think anything that we set up here is valuable enough to like move forward from. Like it almost seems just like a waste. I do think that Coral disagrees with Anicia. Like I think Coral does something. Or Anicia does something. Like, I don't know. Coral dies, Anicia evokes dark magic. The Jedi have to kill, to
They
get them
did.
out of it.
I don't know if it was Coral that suggested it, but I think it was her that suggested it. But she did bring up like they're not gonna miss a few Jedi.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
which is kind of a short side. Like I feel like saying that about Jedi, even especially during like the height of their relevance and status. I feel like that's like saying like, oh, they're not gonna miss a couple of American citizens. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
I don't. I would not go down that road. I would not. I would not.
Yeah.
Like there. I mean, there have been so many instances of like the moment like a Roman citizen gets killed, like it becomes World War V. It's like, oh shit, you don't want to poke that bear. So that, but I will say she did float that idea. She sounds more than willing to be like, okay, like I'll fight you guys if you
Yeah.
if you insist. Anicia in that regard seems like the peacemaker there, where she's like, no, like we'll indulge them and keep them here. The visiting Jedi are cool, blah blah blah. Coral seems a lot more standoffish with them, and it could be a result of. I mean, maybe the Jedi were involved in their banishment last time. Maybe there might be some ill feelings there.
Yeah.
And somebody even floated the idea. I saw it right before I got on. I got into the show with you guys. Somebody brought up, they were like, "What if she's Darth Teeth? You know, that mysterious like being that's
Oh.
talking to May at the end of episode 2 or 1. I think it's 1.
I just okay. I think Coral. Okay, so I did think Coral could be the lead Sith or whatever that we see light up the lightsaber. Now that I'm thinking about it, I wouldn't be so surprised if Anicia is still alive and Anicia is the Sith.
They are witches. I mean, what if it was like a vision? I don't fucking know. Like, what are they capable of? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, shit. Like, it's like some fucking WandaVision shit where it's like, oh, you didn't actually see me die. It was just like it was a bunch of pile of rubble and rocks, and
Right.
I actually escaped before. It's like I don't fucking know. Like, yeah, like I don't know
I
what
mean,
they're
it's Star
capable of.
Wars. Like,
Yeah,
things like that.
It's also like funny because we're in that kind of like domain where we're dealing with a sect of people that we don't really know what they're capable of doing.
Yeah.
It's not even like Night Sister magic. It's like a different kind of
Yeah.
attunement to the Force that I've never seen before. So it's like, what does this give you? You know?
What's the ascension supposed
There's
to do?
also we didn't get what does their magic do? We saw her like pull the smoke and then like put it into her, but it's like what is their, not that I need to be like how do they do their magic, I need to know, but like we didn't
Right.
even really even get to see them use their magic.
Yeah. So there's a lot of,
Well,
again,
except for when they lit up Torben.
Yeah, she like possessed Torben.
Or like, whatever that was, right?
and that's something that I'm definitely gonna keep in mind when we figure out what exactly went on. Like maybe somebody possessed one of the Jedi. Isn't there like a TV spot? I forgot. Somebody mentioned that there was like a TV. I don't know if this is like a spoiler, but like there was a TV spot that kind of like somebody brought it up and they were like, this could be that. And I was like, oh fuck, maybe it is that. Like maybe this is what's going on in that flashback. I don't know.
I mean, I'm getting some theories in my head. What does Elder Nasa say? That like
Who?
old
Oh,
witch?
the old one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does she say?
Did you say? Oh, sorry.
What?
I thought when you were describing, you're like, yeah, that old bitch, and I was like, wow,
The old
Dimithri.
witch.
But you said witch.
Yeah.
I think the TV spot is him. There's a
It's Kelnaka, right? He's like fighting Torben or something? Or are we talking about two different?
I saw Torben's eyes going black in one, but I
Okay.
didn't see the
I did
Kelnaka
see that.
one.
Yeah, there was a Kelnaka, a very, very quick shot in one of the TV spots where Kelnaka was like attacking what looked like Torben. And I'm wondering, like, could that be that one or both of them were going sicko mode and one of them was being possessed and it became like a Torben's trying to defend himself type of situation. And I mean, maybe Torben he's only a Padawan. Maybe he loses his shit because he already got possessed once.
Yeah.
Maybe he got kind of hurt by that, where he's like, these motherfuckers, like, they fucking took control of my body. Like, and they try and do it again and like self-defense. I mean, he loses his shit and like kills one of them. Or maybe that's where his guilt comes from. He's the only one that was guilty enough to be like, I'm taking my life.
Yeah.
I'm taking a vow of silence for 15 years. Like,
and also his doesn't he have a big scar over his eye?
Yeah, one thing I noticed, and they didn't focus on him, which is honestly gave it away even more, because I was like, oh yeah, like what the fuck? They were like, oh, the fire. And we see Indara, she has like messed up hair, and we see Soul looking stressed, and Kelnaka in the back looking stressed. But then we see Torben, and like he's just far enough away that like if you're kind of half looking at him, you don't really notice. But I looked dead at him because I was like, all right, so what happened with him? Because it seems like his injuries happened when this happened. And I said, bro, there's like a weird blotch on the side of his face. Oh, yeah, they're not like focusing on it because it's like, oh, like if you look at him, you're like, oh, that's not from a fire. What the fuck were you up to? Like, the hell happened there? Why are you half blind now? Like,
yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. Like, it's just one of those things, man. Like, I need more.
I have a theory, and the theory is that Anicia goes back to, because she says that she will consider Osha's want to leave, but doesn't mean that okay. So Anicia will go back, and I'm sure Coral will be like, no, we won't, let's kill them now. And she's like, no, we won't kill them. The Jedi come, and the Jedi say, give her to us. And then Anicia agrees not to kill them, but then says, no, but you leave, and you leave the girl behind. And the Jedi are like, we're not going to leave the girl. Then they possess one of the Jedi. The Jedi start fighting each other, and the Jedi realize that, like, oh, they have to kill whoever's possessing the person to snap them out of the trance. They kill one of the Night Sisters, or whoever these witches are, and then the other witches fight back, so now there's an all-encompassing bloodbath, right? But all the Jedi get out pretty unscathed, so I don't know.
My guess was I was gonna go off of yours. I'm gonna steal like the first third of yours, where it's like, okay, like we'll talk about it, and then they go back there and they talk about it. I think what's gonna end up happening, and this, I'm so ready for this to be wrong. I think what's going to end up happening is that Anicia is talking with the other witches, and she's like, Osha wants to go with the Jedi. Coral's gonna be like, the fuck she is. No, she's not. And Anicia is gonna be like, no, I told her I'd think about it, and I've thought about it. I think we should let her. Maybe this is kind of like the will of maybe she has like a surprisingly enlightened view on this, and she's like, no, like I think she needs to experience that, and it's important for her. I'm glad she's making her own choice. And I think Coral will like go sicko mode, and that's when she kind of starts becoming openly hostile towards the entire situation. There's something about like their dynamic that would make it doubly tragic too, because like they're a thing, right?
I mean, I would assume they're a thing from everything that was also she carried her, and the other one created, like, it was very
I think you know? Just making sure.
Also, so you don't do this to your friends.
I mean, I would have folded if
if Jodie Turner-Smith did that.
Yeah, if Jodie Turner-Smith like caressed my cheek, like I would be like, oh yes, okay, whatever you say. But
is she with Joshua Jackson from Dawson's Creek?
I have no idea.
I
No
thought,
idea whatsoever.
isn't Lupita Nyong'o? I thought she was dating Joshua Jackson.
Oh, but I think Joshua Jackson was with Jodie Turner-Smith. Oh
Completely out
yeah,
of my
they were.
domain.
They have a daughter. So
Oh.
we know Joshua Jackson's taste a little better now.
Lovely.
Both attractive ladies, so great. But yes, I think you're right. Lupita Nyong'o is with Joshua Jackson.
But I think but I think that's what's gonna. My guess is that's what's gonna end up happening. There's gonna be like a major misunderstanding, division of factions. Maybe even maybe there's like a sect of witches within the section that goes rogue and fuck shit up.
And they're like,
she hears she hears it when she's like tunneling through. She hears like them exclaiming, and then like 30 seconds later,
right?
She goes in and they're all dead.
Yeah.
There's no lightsaber noises, but
also the ground is shaking. Why is the ground shaking?
Some powerful witchcraft was
yeah.
some really freaky shit was going on, and whatever the fuck happened, I mean maybe that's how Torben gets that injury. Maybe Kilnaka's fucking beating his ass, and like it's like
I it could be. It could, and maybe that's why Kilnaka literally went into exile, right?
Maybe that's why he dipped the fuck out. Like, oh shit, I can't. Yeah, no, I can't. Yeah.
I mean, that
the
makes
only two,
way more sense.
The only two that kind of like stayed doing the traditional Jedi thing were Indara and Soul. Like everyone else was kind of like so scarred by whatever they saw that day that they were like, I'm either taking a vow of silence or I'm getting the fuck out of here. And like, it's like, what the fuck is going on, guys?
It could also be that Torben killed a witch in cold blood. Whoever's responsible for possessing.
Because a bearish vow is like an ultimate form of penance for a Jedi. It's like you take like a vow of silent, you fuck off basically. You focus entirely on your connection to the Force. You don't even do your general Jedi duties or anything like that. You're focused entirely on your soul. And so for you to kind of like completely remove yourself from your worldly life basically to the point where you're literally just sitting in a room meditating for the last 15 years or however long he took the bearish vow. How long after that did he just immediately just go into bearish vow territory after that? Because he was only a Padawan and he became a Jedi master. So
they said 10 years, I think.
So maybe he spent a couple more years training. He became a Jedi Knight. Maybe they gave him like knighthood after that, called it his great trial, and then he trained a Padawan to knighthood, so he became a master. And then shortly after that, he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna fuck off now and take a vow of silence for 30 fucking years or whatever."
I wouldn't be surprised if he accidentally killed like the old lady, the elder.
Maybe,
something like.
And so,
what would make you do that? It's like killing like an innocent person, I think, right?
And Soul also seemed pretty confident because when they were like he hasn't when they were talking trying to reach out to Torben, they were like he hasn't spoken to anybody in years, and Soul was like he'll talk to me, and he seemed pretty confident like oh no he's gonna talk to me. So again, something happened there that they're all privy to, and it sounds like some heavy ass shit was going on. And it's really unfortunate that Torben died there because I feel like we would have been able to see a lot more of it. I just, oh my God, I can't wait to see the next episode.
Yeah.
I need to see what's going on here.
That's the thing. I need more episodes.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a personal thing. Does anyone have any final thoughts about this whole thing and things that we didn't get out in this episode?
Well, like I said, I'm a pretty easy guy to please when it comes to Star Wars, and this is how I know I'm a pretty easy guy to please, because when you guys started talking about your issues, I was like, well, I guess when you put it that way, yeah, I guess like I literally never really thought about. I was like, oh, okay, like fair enough, yeah, okay. But I think your criticisms are valid, and I agree with a lot of them. And I want to give this show. I really want the show. I want to give this show that I want it to do really, really well, not just for the sake of the narration and narrative and the story, but I also like it deserves to just do well. We deserve good Star Wars. And I would hate if people go in and hate it because of narrative decisions that could have gone, or like, oh, you could have done a better job acting, could have done a better job with this, the pacing, blah, 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 blah. That's fine. That's part of movie critique and show critique and stuff like that. I just hope it doesn't get hammered on for the wrong reasons. And that's kind of always been the big dilemma that I've had with that kind of stuff. Whenever I always jokingly told people, I was like, I have so many problems with the sequel trilogy. I have so many issues with them. I could talk all day about my problems with like The Last Jedi. I could make a rant video about Rise of Skywalker.
Right.
But I almost don't want to do it because I know that when I start saying, yeah, I just had an issue with how this scene was shot, people will go in and they'll take that and run with it. And they'll be like, yeah, see, this is another example of why wokeness and like that is not what did the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 or Quills, like that is nothing like what I just said.
Yeah.
That's not what I said at all. I said that the lighting could have been better here. I didn't say that this was the collapse of Western civilization.
It's the Romulon battery.
But yeah, no, I'm a pretty easy guy to please. But that being said, there's a lot of questions that definitely need answers. And I do think I left this even more confused than I went into it.
Yeah. It didn't answer enough.
No, nowhere near enough. And I'm gonna watch it again as I get ready for bed, just to kind of like see if I missed anything. Maybe there's a few details that maybe I completely overshot, but
like Jar Jar in the background.
Yeah, like, oh, that makes sense. Jar Jar was there. That's why nothing. Yeah, no. So we'll see.
It's I feel like I was getting into a groove with the episode right around the time that like just things like started going crazy, where she's like, then I'll kill you, and I was like, wait, hold on, what is? Yeah. And then I was like real flustered for the end of it. So I feel like I was getting into it, but I feel like if we let it cook a couple more episodes and then we get to here's what really happened that night type of stuff, I don't know if that's gonna make it like retroactively be a better episode, because I still think the crux for me, of course, was Osha being very whiny. That was real hard for me. Like, and just like her characterization. But with the main thing of like, if you don't leave, then I'll kill you type of thing, like there's got to be some kind of like, who's remembering it? Whose perspective are we viewing it from? Is this like Osha's memory and that's why it's twisted, or what happened? So if we get a reveal later on that is incredibly satisfying, I'm not going to be like, yeah, episode 3 was still terrible. I'll be like, okay, I see why they did it that way. But I'm definitely willing to, see where it goes. Like nobody, I don't think they were just throwing stuff at a wall to see what sticks. I think they have a plan. So those, some of the decisions might be like, okay, ones that I don't like. I'm still willing to see where the payoff leads. I just think it's a shame that for some reason Star Wars fans in particular, that it's hard to have like a measured, nuanced conversation. Because it's very interesting. My FYP on TikTok is a lot of Bridgerton content right now. And it's very funny that the people that are talking about Bridgerton are having like deep, nuanced conversations with like thoughtful critiques, and like nobody is in there like, Netflix ruined Bridgerton, here's why, with the woke. It's very like, people are disliking stuff, but they're saying, I see why you dislike that, but this and this and this, and like having a nice conversation about it. And I'm like, I think that Star Wars fans should just be more like Bridgerton fans. And
unironically,
like genuinely, like the conversations that I'm overhearing, like I'm finding myself going like, clicking back on the comments and then watching like all 6 videos in the comment thread of being like, this is a delightful breakdown of the, why this was bad characterization and the blah, 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 and this kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, I think that you should be able to say it. I think it hurt Osha's character that the direction was for, for her to be really whiny, and that they started off at that like butting heads point and we didn't get to see their thing. But what's gonna happen is like, this child actor sucks, right? Like, and let's bully, you know, the girl who played young Leia.
Yeah, we're doing like a Jake Lloyd thing again, where it's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, that one guy that said he wanted to punch that little actress in the face, and I was like, dear God.
Throw him in the fucking Hague.
But then what happens is that I think those of us that are, I mean, I don't talk about Star Wars on the internet anymore.
Probably smart, yeah.
But the concept of it is, I think that people make those videos of being like, someone's gonna make a video being like, she was so annoying, I want to punch her in the face. And then people that are trying to be positive will then like stitch that video. So it seems like 50 people are saying, I want to punch that little girl in the face, but really 50 of people that you know are stitching that video talking about how terrible it is. So it's really one loud voice.
It's amplifying it. It's like, it reminds me of when complete segue, you can edit this out, it was just something that came into my head, but like, it's like that, who's that white girl the other day that came out and said like the N-word on TikTok or something?
I heard something about that,
and like, it was stupid. She's like a grifter. It turns out she's like a grifter. She like legitimately conscientiously made that video because she knew that it was going to get that level of outrage, and she got fired from her job, but now she's trying to like become like a alt-right commentator grifter. And I was like, yeah, this is what she wanted. And I used to fall into that trap of like, oh, bad people. Like, on a general level, I do agree that like people who have fucked up beliefs like that should be shamed and pointed out and made to change or see the error of their ways every single time. But there's another time where I look at it and I look like Candace Owens, and it's like, okay, you don't, she's not trying to change, guys. Like, she's just trying to get you to click on her video because she said that she thinks that XYZ deserves to die. It's like, I know what she's doing. So when she bragged like, oh, thanks for giving me the engagement, I was like, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Yeah, it was funny. Like, some of the videos were funny. I laughed, but I also knew like, yeah, she's going to like somehow turn this into a career, which she doesn't deserve. And she's going to get paid to do this stuff now. So she's well on her way now.
My quick thoughts about this thing. I think Andara might do a heel turn. We're seeing surprisingly little of Carrie Ann Moss. Way too little. I don't know what's going on.
There's also like Vernestra.
Oh yeah.
She's a pretty big High Republic character, and she has a scene where she takes out a light whip. So like there's a whole bunch of other, I always have to keep reminding myself there's so much other shit that's apparently supposed to be happening. So like maybe the next episode will make me go, oh fuck, wow. Okay. All right.
Together.
Wow. Yeah. A nice 58-minute episode that wrapped up everything nicely. Cool. I'm totally okay with that. Yeah. But as it stands right now, it's like, how are you guys going to do this? I'm more curious than anything. I'm more curious. Like, what do you guys plan on doing here? Because I'm not seeing it so far. So
I also think I would hate to do this, but like, the show might hinge on the reveal of who the lead Sith person is.
Yeah, and how they treat it.
It's gonna be somebody we know. It has to be. Like,
it's not gonna. It'll be a red herring in the sense. It won't be like. It's not gonna be like a Sith. I think the actual, whatever they're doing right here. Now I'm starting to think. I don't think this has anything to do with the Sith.
Maybe they're gonna Maroke us, and it's gonna be just a thing of smoke.
That was all. I mean, that I thought was kind of dumb too. It didn't have to be. It didn't have to be a character we knew, but the fact like
it had to be a person.
It had to be a person in Ahsoka, but like they didn't, and then he just like disappeared.
I'm starting. Go ahead.
When I'm watching early episodes like this, and I'm like, I don't know, like you said, you don't know where they're going with it yet. I have to remind myself, like, I know it's only like 8 episodes, which is rough. I think every show should be 12 episodes.
I agree.
But I try to remind myself that Parks and Rec is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And I find the entire first season almost completely unwatchable.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and it's one of my favorite shows.
I mean, right? The Office also season 1 was
like,
good.
Yeah. When I go to rewatch it, I will occasionally skip the first season of Parks and Rec. Right? And you know, so maybe I'm not overly thrilled with the first 3 episodes. Maybe it kicks into high gear in episode 4 and I start sing its praises. It's always a possibility.
There is a precedent for it. I mean, like there have been times where like a show will come out and like the first couple episodes not even do setup. It's just generally just pretty slow. And then like when you get to like 4 or 5, for some reason, everything really starts coming together really quickly and in a way that makes people satisfied with it.
That's Andor.
Yeah. Well, I'm biased because that's probably my favorite. That might be my favorite Star Wars project ever.
I'm the same way. I loved Andor, but the first 2 episodes,
the first 2, and I think that's what releasing all 3 of them at once, the first 3 was brilliant because the first 2, even though I saw the magic there, it wasn't until the third one that I was like, oh, I see what they're doing. And it's fucking incredible. Holy shit. I remember losing my mind on Twitter. I was like, guys, you guys don't understand. People were like, it's boring. I was like, try and watch it. I get to episode 3. If you don't like it after episode 3, I won't force you. But like, oh my God. Maybe Acolyte will have that moment. The only reason we're not seeing it is because they're not releasing the first 2, and then they released the first 2. Maybe because they're not releasing the first 3, and you're not getting like, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. I'm optimistic about the show. I think there's a lot to really see still, and there's a lot to like. I mean, there is a lot for me to like. I'm a lore guy. I love learning new stuff, and whenever they introduce a new planet or a new force sect, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, dude! Like, what other crazy shit do you have in store for us today?
Yeah,
but also this planet was gorgeous.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I thought the twin whatever they were.
I think they're twin planets.
Yeah, was amazing. All the landscape shots were gorgeous.
Yeah,
but I just saw someone on Instagram complaining about like, oh, the force is the thread now. What? And I'm like, no, that's just what they call it.
It's a different interpretation.
Of
it's like with the Night Sisters and their magic. It's like it's still the force. It's just a different. It's like a subsect. It's the force. Like
it's just a different philosophy on like what the force is. By the way, real quick before we go, spice creams or spice creams, ice creams, spice.
What? Yeah, so what are
not space? It's spice, right?
Yeah, they said spice cream, I think.
Yeah, like ice cream.
Yeah. Oh, I thought they said space cream.
If they were in Australia,
which made me confused.
Right? Yeah,
spice cream.
Because I was like, what?
Spice cream.
I thought they said space, and I was like, why are we calling it space cream? We all know we're in space.
Spice creams.
I think they're like a cream puff.
Oh,
yeah, it's kind of that. Yeah.
It could something also just throw in your mouth,
but like a donut hole or something like that. You're like, oh, space cream. Like
I'm watching an anime where there's a lot of the main character like loves to eat cream puffs, so I have cream puffs on the brain a lot.
Right.
So.
It's like Multiverse of Madness when they had those like pizza balls or whatever. Is it? Yeah, that threw me off. That's like the shit you see in dreams. You're like, what the fuck is this? Like, but anyway.
Thank you, both of you, so much for coming on the show and talking about episode 3 of The Acolyte. Before we get going, though, I need to know where people can find you. What do you got coming up? Anything you want to plug? Sarah, I'll let you go first.
Hello, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Ms_Marauder. We're going to be at Anime Expo coming up in Los Angeles. I just added 2 new cosplay builds to that because I am an insane person. Cool. And then we'll be at San Diego Comic-Con building a tiny Paul Atreides for my daughter and a giant sandworm for me. I'm getting a dog exercise tunnel to make into the sandworm, and it came in the mail yesterday, and it fits me, and it looks so ridiculous. So if you want to follow along on tiny Paul Atreides, you can do that on my Instagram, and then sometimes I'll remember that I didn't post a TikTok in a month and post a video.
Yeah, I need to post too. Right. I'm falling behind on that. I should really keep up on it too because it's helping me pay bills, and I should probably get back on that. I'll look at the camera for this, I guess, for the plug. Hi, I'm Mesa Windu on all major platforms. Guys can find me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm working on building my YouTube channel, and it's seeming to come along nicely. On Twitter, I talk about I focus a little bit more on, I still talk about Star Wars, but I talk a little bit about day-to-day stuff like political stuff and stuff like that. People know who know me. I'm a little more vulgar on Twitter. TikTok, I mainly talk about Star Wars. Instagram, I talk about Star Wars. And YouTube, I mainly talk about Star Wars. So you guys can check me out there. And any subscription or follow is greatly appreciated.
Awesome. If anyone wants to follow me personally, you can follow me at This Is Dimithri for my personal stuff. But if you're interested in the Keeg and what the Keeg has to offer, you can follow us at The Keeg Show on TikTok and Instagram. Those are 2 biggest ones. We're also on Facebook and Threads and Twitter and all of that at The Keeg Show / The Keeg Show. If you're watching us live, you're watching us on twitch.tv / The Keeg Show or youtube.com / The Keeg Show, or you're listening to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and SoundCloud.
I see you moving up and damn, dude, all those fucking iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio. Okay. We're not sponsored by iHeartRadio. I would love to have an iHeartRadio podcast, but no.
That's the next step, though, right, man? That's the next step.
You know?
That's the next step. Yeah.
I mean, you know, who's to say? Who's to say? But we got multiple shows here at the Keeg. This is obviously the Acolyte Tonight. That's tonight with a Y. Because we do that, you know, after every Acolyte episode on Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Pacific.
I believe in you, Dimithri.
11 p.m. Eastern. That's what we got for the Acolyte tonight.
Let's fucking
go. We also got
go.
Comic Talk every Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about new comic book releases that came out that week. That's every single week and probably our most consistent show. We also got the Keeg Talks on the weekends, and we got a once-a-month X-Men show called State of X. If you want to keep up with X-Men news, especially with the new relaunch of comics that are coming out for X-Men, this is a really good time to hop on those comics and you know, stay up to date. Sarah.
Okay, I was gonna say I'll listen to that now that I'm an official X-Men fan.
Yeah.
You've indoctrinated me into X-Men.
And I need my comics back.
I know. One day.
I also need, you know, that's the thing about the library. You're racking up fines. Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys out there for watching. Thank you anybody for listening. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Josh, for coming on the show. Once again, I'm your host, Dimithri Perera. And this has been the Acolyte Tonight. Oh, also with co-host Sara.
Sara. Hey.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.